Hello. So we've got two graphic elements. We have the background, we have the plane. We'll try to put this in the game. This will be a bit tricky. What I have here, I have an empty object, because when I'm importing from Blender, rotation will be slightly messed up. See, it's supposed to be facing this way, towards the green axis, the Z axis. So instead of rotating the parent object, I'll rotate this fella here around the yellow green y-axis. Yes, minus 90, minus 90. This is supposed to be minus 90 as well. Okay, so we have plane, the plane. And we see it here in the camera, but it should be probably slightly smaller. So as I'm in the camera, let me change it to... Let me just move the camera higher. Ah yeah, there you go, that's a bit better. Of course we can tweak it later. Let me make it even for 40. Even 40. Rotation maybe 70. Yep, that's perfect. Okay, so the camera is set. The camera should be following the player. We will not parent the camera to the player. This would be messy later on. Now this thing. Oh yeah, it's just a JPEG. We cannot draw it, drop it into there, into the Gyra key. We need to turn it into a sprite. Yep, that should do it. Now I have to save it, of course. Oh, exciting. Alright, let's rotate it around X. Yep, that's 90. It should be lower than the plane. First, let's scale it, because I can already see the plane will have problems with it. 10, 10. No, that's way too much. 2, 2. Okay, that looks a bit more achievable, but let's... So in real life, these would be probably all made by the same person or team of people that use the same scaling, and they would say, yeah, just scale it to 3 and it should work. Yes, that'll do just fine. Let me lower it -1, -2, just in case the plane tilts. Okay, that should be fine. I don't need to check that. And the starting position should be Z. Somewhere here. Alright, and this is something that the designer should agree with level designers, so that the beginning of the level is always aligned with 0 somehow. So the beginning and the ending ends in the same spot. See, I haven't thought of that when I was painting it. I realized it just now. That's why communication within the team is super important. Okay, where's my camera? I need to see it, what it looks like in camera. I think it's very, very even actually. In terms of this edge. Let me move it slightly to the left. To the left is X. Alright, there you go. Maybe each level will be different. I don't know. Maybe each level can have a different ending and starting position. This is all to be agreed, right? Right. Plane. See, the plane parent, the empty object, not the actual 3D object, has an input controller, and I'll need to add something called rigid body. So the regular rigid body, don't use gravity. Drag. yes, it will need to drag a tiny bit, but you know what, maybe we should tune it later. Let's freeze rotation. It rotates only on Z axis because it will tilt left and right, so I don't need it to rotate on Y and X. Position, it doesn't go anywhere on Y. Okay, this should be alright. We probably could use a collider. And for testing purposes, we'll just use the box collider. I want to see it. Oh, it's tiny. Of course it's tiny. We attached it to the empty, not to the plane. That's why it doesn't know how big it's supposed to be. So we'll do it manually. No, not this way. This way. Stretch. And let's shift the Z center this way. Okay, this should be fair. Yeah. Okay, we have rigid body, we have the collider. That's pretty much all the player needs, but I need a player script. Let's call it player movement. New script, yes, player movement. Let's do this. Right, first I'll need the reference to serialize field to rigid body, and let's call it RB. Then I need a reference. I probably need a reference to collider, but that will come later. So first I'll add a public function here. I will be catching it with an event in a moment. Control dot, and let's add the input system. Now Unity input system is pretty cool. It's not easy to master, at least I had a tough learning curve here. It's very much cross-platform, so if you plug in a pad, you can easily configure it without changing code. That's why we're using it here. Steering input, okay, I'm catching this context here, reading the value, that's how it's done, reading vector 2, because that's how I set it up in Unity. Here, player, this fellow here is a vector 2. I'm catching time because I'll be using it a few times, and draw steering should be a variable available here to all the other methods, and we'll call it, and this will be a vector 3. Why should it be vector 3 if in reality we're using only 2 of these? Actually, you know what? We're using only one. I should make it into 2 floats. It's just I was using very similar code in another game. I just copied and pasted without thinking. Float steering Y. Can I do it this way? Of course I can. And now steering Y will be this. And steering X will be that. Not that we'll use it the same way. Oh, come on. Okay. So we're capturing these two values. Let me see what we can do in update. In update we could just move the transform like this. Dot x equals something. Position.x, right? Or we can, as we're using rigid body, we can add force, which will make sense when we're turning the plane left and right, because it will have the momentum, it will have inertia. So I'll do it this way. There's a reference to our RB from here, transform up, and which basically means I'll have to check the axes, because this should move our plane up and down, right? It converts our steering into vector 3. All right, you know what? Let's test it. There's no way this will work. Why is my steering Y not showing here as used? Oh, because I actually don't use it. Should I be using steering Y or X? I think it should be a Y, right? Okay, let's try it. And if I press play, the plane should react. Oh, rigid body should be plugged in here. Click. The plane should react to our keys. I have set WASD here. Play. Drum roll, no errors. No errors. No, nothing's happening. Nothing's happening. This is saved. Oh, of course I didn't plug in that on steer to this events player. Steer. Steer, as you can see, is something that I created here, steer, and it appears here, steer. List is empty, so it doesn't react to it. And I want what? The player object, of course. Function, player movement, on steer. There you go. Let's save it, let's play it, and let's see how it flies. I was overly enthusiastic here. Maybe the values are so tiny because of time delta time. This must be it. Alright, let me make some sort of static here acceleration. It's always good to exaggerate a bit, because this way it shows better what you're trying to do if you're doing something wrong. I didn't actually add it. Times acceleration, there you go. And maybe this transform up is messing with our plane a bit. But even if it is, I would still see the values here changing. Oh, I know what's happening. We're trying to move it in the y-axis instead of... You know, just for the sake of argument, I'm going to uncheck y. There you go. Oh, it went up. So wrong vector. Y is back, but at least we know what happened. This was great live troubleshooting, and of course I knew what I was doing here. Yeah. Steering, Y, acceleration. We want transform up to be transform right. and steering Y will be steering X. If I'm not mistaken, I was pressing the wrong keys and it was reacting to them. So now let's try it. Oh yeah. Oh, I pressed right and off it went. Wow, I could play this game forever. I mean, this is fascinating. Whew. Of course, it needs colliders. Well, I'll need to place colliders here, which will probably be invisible objects. And way more drag. This will actually be more difficult to steer than the regular River Raid. It definitely has inertia. Plane should be tilting depending on how quickly it travels left and right. But I don't see this appearing in any sort of alpha release. Okay, next step, the background should be moving and the colliders should be in, but that's something for a completely different session. Okay, thanks for watching. I hope this was a good demonstration into how much effort it takes to make something move in Unity. But once it starts moving, you know where you are and it's smooth sailing. Thanks for watching.